back on this terrible wave of violence. He was buying gaffer tape in a DIY store, tape that was eventually used to restrain Louise Hunt before he raped her. He was buying rope that police believe, and there was some images of this that showed that he tied together a noose. Whether that was for one of his victims or for himself, it's not clear. It was found in the woods where he was finally arrested. Perhaps a possible attempt to kill himself, but it didn't go any further than that. There was other CCTV footage that showed him buying cans, petrol cans, that the police believed he could have used to perhaps destroy the scene of his crimes at the Hunt household. They picked up on his use of his mobile phone and the searches he was doing on the internet, and in fact the things he bought. And the crossbow was bought on Amazon via the internet, and so too was the butchery knife, as it was described in court. So police were able to show through tracking back over his movements those 2 weeks before the murders that was exactly what he had in mind.
Martin Brunt, for us, they're outside at Cambridge Crown Court following the sentencing to a whole life order of Kyle Clifford for the murders of Louise and Hannah Hunt and Carol Hunt in Bushey last summer. The judge saying that Mr. Clifford will never be released from prison.
Yay! Okay, so... Oh, don't want to hear about Donald. We don't want to hear about Donald. We're sick of Donald. Anyway, so there you go, a little bit of justice today. Kyle Clifford, let me take my banner off. Kyle Clifford. In fact, I'm not mentioning his name now. Twunk, face, whatever we're going to call him. He was, of course, found guilty of the murders of 3 women from the Hunt family. Let's have a look. Let's put a picture of them up. We want to look at them. We want to remember them. But we're going to forget about him now. So he was found guilty, of course. So he's been sentenced today. And unfortunately, I had to go out, and otherwise I would have done the sentencing live. But he's been given, as predicted, as we were saying that he likely would get, and thank you God that he did, a whole life tariff. He won't be coming out of prison ever. He will live a miserable life in prison because he is actually, he murdered these ladies, and then off he went to try and do it to himself. He didn't succeed. And I'm glad he didn't succeed, because I want him to suffer. Why should he have been able to take himself away to where these women were? Well, not that he was probably going to the same place that they were. So he's been, because it was just awful what he did. He premeditated the murder of these 3 women because Louise Hunt did not want to be with him anymore. How dare she finish with him? How dare she? He would teach her, that in his head is, I'll teach you. You're not going to finish with me. Not only am I going to murder you, I'm going to murder your family, your sister, your mother. Anyway, so let's have a look. We've had victim impact statements read out in court. Now, unfortunately, again, he refused to go to court. So, unfortunately, the family didn't have the satisfaction of looking him in the face as they gave their victim impact statements. Now, this is something that's going to change, isn't it? There's laws coming in where people can't do that, refuse to go to court. Unfortunately, it hasn't come in yet. So let's have a look at how it transpired. I'm all giddy today because it's been classes, then I had to go out somewhere, then I've got classes, then I've got to take my son to it. So it's all going on today. Otherwise, I would have been here to watch the sentencing live. But anyway, just one of those things. He's had his sentence. That's the important thing. Let's see. There's a... So I think what's important is to listen to or to hear the victim impact statements. They're what count. So this is John Hunt. He's a BBC racing commentator. It was his wife Carol and two of his daughters, Louise and Hannah, that were murdered by this man just because Louise didn't want to be with him anymore. And he has one surviving daughter. Thankfully, at least they've got each other. So John Hunt's message to Kyle Clifford as the crossbow killer is sentenced for murdering the BBC commentator's family. He delivered a powerful victim impact statement in court aimed at his wife and daughter's killer. What I'm going to call him, dickhead or something, I don't know. I don't even want to call him anything, before the 26-year-old was sentenced for his crimes. And that's it, he's young, you see. So if he would have got like a 30-year sentence or a 40-year sentence even, he still would have been young enough when he came out to have a bit of a life. So it's good that he's been sentenced to, to a whole life tariff. And don't forget, as we've mentioned before, his brother is already in prison for murder. So God, talk about a double whammy for his family. There's something wrong in that family. Having one son as a killer is, bad enough, but probably unlucky. But having two killer sons, what's going on there? There's got to be something dysfunctional in that family, hasn't there? To have two sons, my God. Let me just make their picture bigger. Yeah, I don't want to see my picture so big. Hey, Julie. Hi, Julie. So, yeah, a good result. A good, I like it when we get justice. I mean, obviously, can't bring these three women back, but it's got to feel better knowing that he is going away for life. So, John Hunt told the man convicted of murdering his two daughters and wife that hell will roll out a red carpet for him. He admitted, because don't forget as well, apart from murdering the three girls, he RAPD'd one of them, his ex-girlfriend Louise, which he denied. He admitted murder, but he denied RAPE for some unknown reason, and came out with some ridiculous story that the DNA that was found inside Louise was from weeks ago before they finished. Anyway, the jury weren't interested in his lies, and he was found guilty. So he admitted shooting his ex-girlfriend Louise Hunt, her sister Hannah Hunt, 28, with a crossbow and fatally stabbing their mother, 61-year-old Carol Hunt, last July. Now, don't forget how he got into the house. He pretended to Carol, the mother, when the mother answered the door, he pretended that he was there to bring back some stuff of Louise's. He had a thank you card with him just in case he had to provide a reason why he was there. He'd already checked that the husband was working late, and he then texted him from his daughter's phone to ask what time he would be home. The whole thing was premeditated. He went out, he bought the stuff he needed. He fit every requisite of a whole life tariff. Premeditated, extreme violence, an SEX motive, everything was fulfilled. So, we were all hoping that that's exactly what he would get, and he did. So he had denied RAPING in Louise during the attack, but he was found guilty last week. So Now, there's a warning here, and I'm going to reiterate that warning. Readers may find some of the content below upsetting. This is John Hunt's victim impact statement. My name is John Hunt, and I am blessed to be Carol's husband and Hannah, Louise, and Amy's dad. Thank you for returning the guilty verdict today. That you had to consider the evidence was purely down to Kyle choosing not to admit responsibility. You two are victims of his callous, cowardly, vindictive behaviours, and I wish he hadn't put you through that. So I wanted to deliver these words, eye to eye with Kyle. I will continue to act as if I am doing so. So Kyle refused to go. And so, unfortunately, the only unfortunate thing is Mr. Hunt was not able to look him in the eye and say these things. But we'll all hear them. We'll all hear them. And Kyle will hear, I mean, he should be made to hear them. Do they read these words out to him? If he won't appear in court, he should be made to hear them one way or another, even if it's, from his prison cell or whatever. Somebody should go in and read this out to him. You simply failed to be the person she needed. When I was first invited to provide a victim impact statement, I initially misunderstood its purpose. Do I really need to detail the impact of having 3/4 of my family murdered? But then I realised that this was my final opportunity to say what I want to say specific to you, specifically, Kyle. Words that will also be directed to your family, who will carry guilt forward for the rest of their lives. Now, don't forget, guilt, his brother's a murderer as well. I know you valued them so poorly from all the conversations we had, Kyle, but I suppose even they must be damaged by what you have done. So I bet Kyle, he was one of those, oh, what a terrible family he comes from. His parents are awful. They treated him terrible. They abused him. They did this. They did that. That's the reason. I bet he spent all that time that he was with Louise whinging about his family to anybody who, will listen. And probably none of it's true, because it seems to me he was probably indulged, spoilt brat. And that's and it's this sense of entitlement that a lot of people, young people, have got these days. It's what they're entitled to, what they deserve. Not, they don't think they have to work for anything, earn anything. It's their parents, everything's their parents' fault. Not their fault. Of course it couldn't be their fault. I also want to confirm to the world the truth, especially how Louise conducted herself within a textbook mature breakup on her part, understanding the conflict of saying goodbye to someone she once loved, but not allowing these memories to cloud her certain knowledge that you simply failed to be the person she needed. You failed. I am so proud of all my girls. Unlike you, Kyle, at every step of their lives, they made the correct choices to improve themselves as people. Louise enjoyed more success and fulfillment in one morning than you achieved in your entire miserable life. Oh, that's a very powerful sentence, isn't it? Louise enjoyed more success and fulfillment in one morning than you achieved in your entire miserable life. And do you recall, Kyle, how kind we all were to you, helping you and Louise enjoy trips away? Do you remember how she loved a swanky hotel? You were always invited to meals out, a Sunday lunch at the pub, or a special celebration. You were always made welcome. The only Christmas you spent together was at our house. Was it 4 or 5 days you spent with us? So bear in mind, this man, he's not only been to their house, he's stayed there for 4 or 5 days as if he was part of the family. And this is how he's repaid them. That's how he's been repaid for the kindness that they showed him. The food, the games, the laughter, the normality. What was it about that blissful existence you hated so much, Kyle? Could you not handle how pleasant it was? Such a contrast to what you were used to. The trips to Italy, Disneyland, and many more. Louise gave your relationship so much effort, which you were never able or willing to match. We all offered you kindness, especially Carol, and it was Carol, of course, that let him into the house, because Carol was a nice person. She had picked up on your personal inadequacies right from the start. She sensed your immaturity, but she always knew Louise would work things out. Carol still displayed her compassion right up to the moment she answered the door to you on the 9th of July. Do you remember her kindness, Kyle? How she urged you to get some relationship help and guidance for fear that you would never be able to sustain a lasting relationship. You calmly accepted that advice on the doorstep and then seconds later savagely stabbed her 8 times and ended her life. You are a psychopath. When I challenge myself about how you were able to deceive us all, I simply say you are a psychopath who, for the duration of your time together with Louise, was able to disguise yourself as an ordinary human being. You reserved your best make-believe version of yourself for the times you were in our house. Oh God, and you would go through that sort of guilt feeling that you had this man in your house, but he pretended to be nice, didn't he? God. And of course, psychopaths and sociopaths, they display. A psychopath can mirror you because they don't have any feelings of their own or any empathy of their own. So what they can do is mirror somebody else's empathy. That's probably what he did. For a while at least. You reserved your best make-believe version of yourself for the times you were in our house. You managed to maintain that veneer of decency throughout the first year of your time with Louise, but you could not maintain it in the early part of 2024. Although Carol and I never witnessed any alarming behaviour, your visits became less frequent. You began the first of 2 affairs that we know about. Yeah, so he was actually seeing other people. I mean, it's just breathtaking, isn't it, really? He was seeing other people, whereas he was lucky to have Louise. I mean, he put on a show, if you like, or a veneer, and that meant that Louise at first probably thought he was a nice person. And then when she started to see through it, that's when, and then find out about him having other women, etc. That's when she wanted to finish it. And he just couldn't accept the rejection because he's, just a sociopath, psychopath. I think most words you could think of would apply to this person: coercive, controller, etc. So it wasn't only the army. So you began the first of 2 affairs that we know about, and your aversion to a day's hard work continued as you messed up yet another job at Reynolds. It wasn't only the army that found you worthless. I often think of the list that Louise wrote to herself to remind her of the reasons that you fell short. The racism, so he's a racist. She was rightly disgusted by that. Your belittling language, the fact that your family is a mess. Like any woman should be allowed to do, she worked you out despite repeated deceit and said enough is enough. I hope women around the world will take Louise's bravery as a shining beacon for their lives. If you feel enough is enough, then it is. And I'd like to remind you, Kyle, of how gracious Louise was to you in that final text to you. This is what she said on the 26th of June, the morning after she had finished with you face to face. she texted you thanking you for what was a wonderful year together, explaining how much she once loved you, that she never wanted any animosity to develop between you, and that she wanted you to take care of yourself. And you texted back saying, thank you for the clarity, Louise, so we can both start our healing process. I love you so much, and I will for a very long time. I will always be here for you if you ever need me. Please don't hesitate. I wish you the best, all the best. Take care of yourself too. So all the time while he sent that message, he was talking to his other murderous brother in prison about how to use a crossbow. He was ordering them on Amazon, for God's sake, ordering the knife and the crossbow on Amazon, and planning what he was going to do. So the difference was, says John, we know now that Louise meant every word, whereas you simply lied. You killed 3 beautiful mockingbirds, Kyle. I mean, it's unbelievable how this father must feel to lose 3 women from his family. Let me put that picture up bigger as we're talking. I've not got a bigger picture. In fact, let me get one. I want to, they should be there on the picture while I'm reading out this statement. There they are. You didn't love her enough to stop you having those 2 affairs in the spring of last year, or to start planning to kill her and her family just days later, and that a horrific RAPE on her was part of the plan. Your levels of misogyny are off the scale. Louise's favourite novel from her school days, this is one of my favourite books as well, was Harper Lee's classic To Kill a Mockingbird. She was captivated by the goodness of Atticus Finch, both as a father and a lawyer. She would often quote lines from the novel to match life's challenges. And on one of those quotes that comes to mind right here in this moment was of Miss Maudie reasserting Atticus's assertion that it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. And she said, your father's right. Mockingbirds don't do one thing except make music for us to enjoy. They don't eat up people's gardens. They don't nest in corn cribs. They don't do one thing but sing their hearts out for us. That's why it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. All their lives, Carol, Hannah and Louise similarly spent their time bringing joy and colour and happiness to other people's lives. You killed 3 beautiful mockingbirds, Kyle. I can't imagine a more cowardly act. I mean, it's hard to, at the end of the day, this is a true crime channel. We talk about crimes and we talk about some terrible things sometimes. But there's not much. This has been probably one of the worst crimes, that I've ever had to talk about. So to remind you, over a period of 4 hours, you brutally killed Carol, waited over an hour until Louise came into the house. You incapacitated her, RAPD'd her, and when you realised Hannah was coming home, you shot Louise in the back. Yeah, just unbelievable, isn't it? He murdered their mum and then waited in that house until Louise finished grooming dogs in the pod in the garden and came into the house. And then when he realised Hannah was coming home, he shot Louise in the back. I can't imagine, with the crossbow, I can't imagine a more cowardly act. You couldn't look her in the eye. You murdered Hannah minutes later, so 4 hours. A few weeks later, I also spent 4 hours with them, Kyle, in the funeral directors. The usual room wasn't big enough for 3 bodies, but they removed a partition wall so we could all be together. I sat for a while with Louise to my right. She looked so peaceful, and Hannah to my left. I couldn't quite reach to hold their hands at the same time. Amy and I, so Amy is the other daughter, the surviving daughter, just, at least have got each other. Amy and I placed a photograph of Chester in Louise's right hand. Carol was at the top of the room. She was dressed in a beautiful orange dress she had bought for a wedding we went to a month beforehand. I stroked her hair and told her how much I loved her. I thanked her for being such a wonderful partner in life and wonderful mother. They were my 4 hours, Kyle. I am lucky. And what about me? The impact of what you've done will be taken to my grave. But on the way there, I want you to know that I stand strong before you today. And as you are consigned to a fate far greater than death, I can draw on the love and strength that I still feel from the girls in every moment of every day. I am lucky. I have the most wonderful daughter, Amy, who gives me such focus and purpose. I have Gareth and Alex. Now, I don't know if they're grandchildren that he has, I presume so. I have my extended family reaching far beyond my mum, brothers and sister, aunts and uncles and cousins. I have many friends who watch out for me on an hourly basis. Carol's friends are mine. And now I have a renewed relationship with Hannah and Louise's best friends. I will always be there for them, and they will always be there for me too. So whilst I am so badly damaged, I am determined to see what my future is, surrounded by so many amazing people. And the chance to do so has been gifted to me by my incredible Hannah. I firmly believe that had she not managed to show such amazing physical and mental strength in raising the alarm after you fatally injured her, then I would have been your 4th victim that day. Hannah handed me a second chance, one that she worked so hard to achieve for me. Do you really think, after what she did for me, I will slight her memory and example by just giving up? Now, I'm going to get a picture up of John, I think, because we need to. So, John is the husband and father of these murdered women. Let's have a look, put a picture of him up so we can put a face to him. And he was at work that day. But Kyle checked to see that he was at work, and then he sent a message on Hannah's phone to see what time he would be home. Let me just put his picture up. There. So here's a picture of him with his wife. Oh, hang on one moment. So this is John and Carol in happier times. So Hannah handed me a second chance, one that she worked so hard for to achieve for me. Do you really think after what she did for me, I will slight her memory and example by just giving up? Even though the days are difficult and feel on many occasions impossible, I will channel my inner Atticus Finch at all times. He said, I want you to see what real courage is. Instead of getting the idea that courage is a man with a gun in his hand, it's when you know you are licked before you begin, but you begin anyway and you see it through no matter what. And now comes a time when your fate on this earth will be confirmed. Your misery will last for eternity. Every single person in the world, I'm thinking of mothers and fathers in particular, especially those daughters, now expects the formality of a life sentence. Never again to make choices of your own, to breathe fresh air only occasionally, to eat when someone else tells you to eat. But just remember one thing, whatever sentence you're about to receive, whatever misery lies ahead for you for the next 60 years, remember that after your days on earth are doing, on your dying day, there will be no release for you. The screams of hell, Kyle, I can hear them faintly now. The red carpet will come out for you. And at that point, when the person you could have been meets the person you are, you will realize that your miserable fate will last for eternity. What a powerful statement. And I believe that too. Don't think that he'll be released. When he passes from this earth, he'll face an even worse sentence. Then Amy gave a victim impact statement. Mr. Hunt's surviving daughter, and of course Louise and Hannah's sister. You are a monster. That day you intruded into a beloved family home where you yourself had spent lots of happy times and attacked these defenseless women one by one, alone and out of the blue, with such hideous weapons that ensured they had no means of defending themselves. I can think of nothing more cowardly than that. Now, I don't know if I have a picture of Amy. Let's see. Don't know if there's a picture, because I'd like to put her picture up while we're reading her statement. Let's see, do we have a picture of her? I don't think I have a photo of her. There's a picture, one of those drawings. I'll put that up, I think. See. Maybe she doesn't want, her picture, which is fair enough, isn't it? Just that I wanted to put it up. Well, so let's put up. This is her artist impression that we're going to look at. And again, so she would have wanted this law has got to change. The victims' families should be able to address people directly. Anyway, that day you had a choice, Kyle, and you chose to inflict violence of a horrific scale, all for your own selfish, sadistic aims, all the time, truly thinking of yourself alone. I can only assume that in the days after Louise broke up with you, you created a false narrative in your head about how we had supposedly wronged you in order to allow you to avoid confronting the pain and shame within you, and the truth that the breakup was your fault, entirely your fault. That day, my mum, Hannah and Louise were all simply living their lives, getting on with their day in the home, working or returning home after work. Their home is a place that was and should have continued to be safe for them, and you made it the most unsafe. place in the world for those few hours. Hi, Maria. You are a monster. What you did to Louise that day, Kyle, is nothing short of demonic. To put her through the torture you did is inexplicably horrific. And I ask again, for what? Because she dared to dump you, something that was her right and choice. For that alone, you have earned yourself your rightful spot in hell one day. And we can only hope that even you, who has continually denied this act, feel crippling shame every single moment for being the rapist that you are. My mother Carol was everything to us. Hysterically funny, loving, quick-witted, honest, the most caring, and someone who put her family above all else her entire life. She adored her husband and her girls and was fiercely protective of her children. She loved her home and her extended family, and she shared the most wonderful, loving, supportive and fun relationships with our dad that provided me, Hannah and Louise, with the perfect example of love. And our home was full of just that every single day because of her. She and Dad gave us the most amazing childhood we could have ever asked for. My mum and I would talk for hours on end, either in person or on the phone, and she was the very best for providing advice, loving words or comfort. I will miss the sound of her warm, reassuring voice for the rest of my life. Hannah was feisty, hilarious, hard-working, eternally positive and inspiring. Straight talking and the most supportive and protective person you could ever hope to meet. She would do anything for those she loved, and whenever Hannah was in a room, she couldn't help but make it better, making everyone there smile and laugh. You know, it's horrible to think that this man lived in their house, for 5 days over Christmas. They invited him into their home. They allowed him to share in this nice family atmosphere they had, and obviously he had a pretty crap family because, his brother's a murderer as well. But maybe he didn't, maybe he's just an entitled little shit who just, thought he was entitled to everything, and maybe he hated his family because they indulged him. That happens too. Anyway, Hannah had the strength of a lion and was guaranteed to meet everyone with her signature smile and contagious giggle. Her beauty clients loved and respected her hugely, treasuring their sessions with her and she them. She loved hard and she'd found her soulmate in Alex. So Alex is her boyfriend, yeah. Their life and future together was written in the stars, and she too adored her family more than anything. So I think that particularly John's victim impact statement, very, very, very powerful. Anyway, so the judge decided, I don't know if we've got the judge verdict, if we've got a short, we've got the video of him actually giving the verdict. But of course, this twonk, this coward, he wouldn't come to the courtroom. Now that's going to change that. When the law passes, it's got to change. How dare these people say they're not going to go and face their victim's family? How dare they? That's the one thing they can do. They can't bring, they can't bring the victims back, but the one thing they can do is look the perpetrator in the eye and tell them exactly what they think of them, and that is the one little thing, isn't it? One little thing that they can take comfort from, or not comfort's not the right word, but just oh, here we go. I think we've got the sentence in here. Right, let's just have a look at the sentence in there. take that off. Let's see. Present. See what the judge had to say. Oh no, that's not the one. Where's the video? Is that it?
Carl Clifford, on the 9th of July last year, you went to the home of your former girlfriend, Louise Hunt, and launched a murderous attack on her and her family. You first killed her mother, Carol, who even on that day showed you nothing but kindness in the moments before you attacked her. You raped and killed Louise, who had been as gentle as she could in ending her relationship with you after your arrogance and anger proved too much for her to stand. Then you murdered Hannah Hunt, who had done nothing to harm you save supporting her little sister. The evidence I have heard shows you to be a jealous man, soaked in self-pity, a man who holds women in utter contempt. This is no occasion to subject the family and friends of your victims to any delay or suspense. I therefore make clear at once that for each of these 3 murders, the sentence will be one of life imprisonment with a whole life order. That means a sentence from which you will never be released. Your brutal and cowardly attack had been planned over about 11 days. You conducted extensive research into the movements of Louise's father, John, into her mother's Facebook page, into buying a crossbow, a knife, and an air pistol, and even into the weather on the day of the attack. You bought rope, duct tape, petrol cans, the knife you used in the attack, and a crossbow. You wrote letters to your family dripping with self-pity.
Yeah.
On the day of the attack, you first parked well away from the Hunt family home to check if Louise's father was there. Researching his work when you saw his car was indeed outside the house. You approached a second time with a bag of Louise's clothes and a thank you card to Carol and John Hunt, obviously part of a plan to trick Mrs. Hunt into letting you in the house. You first talked to Carol Hunt on the doorstep and persuaded her to admit you. She spoke kindly to you, but you then attacked her, stabbing her to death within moments of entering. You then left the house to collect the crossbow. Louise Hunt had been working in a building in the garden of the house. When she came in, you restrained her with duct tape round her wrists and ankles and gagged her. You kept her there alive for over 2.5 hours. She must have come to realize you'd already killed her mother. During that time, you raped her. Then you murdered her by shooting her with the crossbow as her sister Hannah was about to enter the house. Hannah Hunt was in a rush. She saw you and realized something was very wrong. You then shot her with the crossbow, causing an injury she could never hope to survive, but she remained alive long enough to see the unspeakable violence you had already inflicted on her mother and her sister. Hannah was able to call for help, but when the emergency services arrived, they could not save her. You had fled. You were arrested the next day, whereupon you made a last-minute attempt to kill yourself.
Huh. Couldn't even get
I've
that
heard
right.
John Hunt, Amy Hunt, and Alex Klein speak of their dreadful loss. They were difficult to listen to, given the devastation and heartbreak they recounted. They spoke of Carol, Louise, and Hannah as bringing joy, colour, and happiness into the lives of everyone they knew. They were funny, hard-working, and caring people. Each precious life, so full of potential, of future successes and celebrations, torn away by your appalling violence. The statements of John and Amy Hunt also demonstrated great courage and determination that your terrible crimes will not define them or stop them leading the lives that Carol, Louise, and Hannah Hunt would have wished for them. They showed a gentle heroism of which you, Carl Clifford, can only dream. I've already announced the ultimate sentence I will impose. I now need to set out the technical legal reasoning behind the sentences I have decided.
Right, okay. I've got to finish there because I've got classes very soon. I've got some Spanish classes. I think it was really good of the judge to give the sentences first. You know, he said he didn't want to put the family through, you know, any more waiting or suspense. It's quite unusual that to you know, normally they give all the circumstances. Hang on, let me put. They give all the circumstances, you know, and talk like he talked about the case after. Normally they talk about the case first and then they give the sentence, but he just went straight into the sentence. 3 whole life tariffs. So, you know, it's just like, I mean, you can only serve 1 whole life tariff, of course, but I think it's significant that he got 3. I think there's very few crimes I've ever heard about in the whole time that I've ever been, you know, following true crime. Very few that you can think of that are as bad as this one. You know, just awful. So that's it. I'm never going to mention his name again. I hope I never have to show his picture again. That's it as far as I'm concerned. He's in prison for the rest of his miserable life, and I hope he is miserable. I hope, you know, I can't wish any good things on him, or, you know, I find it hard to find any empathy for him, you know, but I'm glad that he didn't succeed in killing himself, because he's got some torture to go through now before he goes through torture in the next world. Okay, so I'm going to finish there. I just want to say rest in peace to these ladies. We won't forget about them. I mean, I'm sure there'll be times, maybe it'll be, you know, a birthday or anything that comes up. Thing is, it's that you don't want to forget these victims either. You don't want to just never talk about them again. But, you know, I think every time that anyone mentions their names means they're being remembered and their memories are alive. But a real warm love, and, you know, I'm speechless to what to say to John and Amy, or all the family and friends that have suffered, you know, the loss of these women from their lives. I'm so sorry, just so sorry that you had to go through this. And, you know, I do hope that something, you know, you always look for the positive. There's not much positive here, is there? The only positive thing is that he's received a whole life tariff, and he'll never ever be able to do this to anyone else again. But yeah, he's struggling to find the positives here. But, you know, John, his victim impact statement was full of positivity. So if he can be positive, then, you know, he's not going to let this man, you know, steal his life as well, but in a different way, if you know what I mean. So we'll see what happens from here on. Okay, thank you very much. I will see you very soon. Thank you for caring about these girls, these women, and thank you for caring about their family. And I'll see you really soon in the next video. Until then, may your God go with you. Bye.